Hello, hello. Welcome if you're here for the April Society of Advice call, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, pricing. And pricing, I don't know why it's so, the word's not controversial. I don't know why it's so triggering. I don't know why we get so much feedback around pricing. And I want to just clear something up. The Society of Advice is a place for real financial advisors who care deeply about the impact of their work. Like most of the people who join the Society of Advice have a sort of service-oriented mindset, right? We came here because we want to help people. And this is not a but, this is an and. And it's okay to get paid for that work. Right. And I just want to make sure we understand it's not a but. If we keep the first idea in mind, like we care deeply about the people we're making an impact on, of course we're going to do that in a transparent, honest way. Of course. Right. But it's not inconsistent with that service-oriented, steward-oriented mindset that we all have. It's not inconsistent to also generate a profit. And I think profit equals permission to continue to have the impact I want to have. So profit equals permission. I used to not feel this way. I used to be like, oh, profit bad. Oh no, I'm an artist. Oh, money doesn't matter. And then I realized like, wait, if I want to keep doing this work in a way that's sustainable emotionally and physically and for my family, profit is the engine that drives that. So that's what we're going to cover this month is how to talk about fees. And I actually want to change that. I'm starting to use the language, how to talk about the investment people make to work with you, which I love much better than fees. So today we're going to learn from Blair. Blair, I consider a good friend, but I also consider him, and I'm not alone in this. He's not going to love this, but I'm not alone in considering him really the expert on pricing creative services and how to talk about it. And we had Blair and his wife in our house a couple weeks ago, and he worked through some of these conversations with my wife on her interior design business, and it has fundamentally changed the way she feels about the work that she does and how she's trying to talk about it. So we're going to get some of that today. Blair, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Carl. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So talk to us just before we dive into the nitty-gritty stuff. Like, how did you end up working in this field of pricing?
Well, I grew up professionally in the advertising and design world, and I launched my business Win Without Pitching in 2002, so 22 years ago this month, as initially as a consulting service. And at some point, I had a year-long program that we were running at the time, and I was onboarding a client into the program. So it was the initial onboarding conversation. And I'm getting the information from him. And he says, I really need to thank you. I've made a lot of money from your advice over the years. And I said, oh, that's great. And I kept going, doing whatever I was doing. And he said, no, I've made a lot of money. And I said, oh, I'm happy for you. That's good. He said, Blair, I have personally made millions of dollars from your advice. He'd paid me less than $10,000. And he made millions from that advice. And so my first reaction was, well, that's not fair. And then I was thinking, well, of course it's fair. Don't be petty, Blair. I didn't say that's not fair. I said, oh, I'm really happy for you. But when I hung up from that call, I thought, first of all, he's overstating my contribution to his income because it's easy to give advice. And the people who follow it and take the risk and put it into practice, they make the most money. But I resolved in that moment to learn more about the subject of value and the subject of pricing, which are two different things, but somewhat related. So I started to read books on the topic. It was one of Ron Baker's books, and I forget which book. The first chapter of Ron Baker's book, and it's Pricing on Purpose, is called Why is Movie Theater Popcorn So Expensive? And at the end of that chapter, like I thought, I'll read 3 books on value and pricing, and I'll understand how to price better. And at the end of that chapter, I thought, oh my God, this is a massive field. It's as it's a field as large as the field of human judgment and decision making.
Mm.
And so I endeavored to read the canon of literature on pricing, which is numerous books, which took me down all kinds of rabbit holes, macroeconomics, which I was never interested in, and other areas. I mean, I started to question the nature of reality because of pricing, and maybe we'll get to that. I went down like I got to the point where, people say time is money. I started to go crazy over that phrase because I started to wonder, well, what is time and what is money? And I've come to the conclusion very few people understand time. Very few people understand money. Probably nobody understands both. Anyway, can I share a slide?
Yeah, please.
Fundamentally, there are only three things you can price. It doesn't matter what business you're in, but this is an example for financial planners. The three things you can price and sell are the inputs of time and materials, the outputs of the thing that the client is getting, and then the outcomes or the value that you're endeavoring to create. I don't think it's very common in your business to sell inputs, to sell the time, to charge for your time. It's very common in advertising agencies and design firms. I think it's more common for you to price the outputs, the managed portfolio, the meetings, et cetera. And then really the ultimate place to get to, not just for the sake of your own income, but to force you to be in a value creation mindset for your client. We could talk more about that.
Mm.
Is this place where you are pricing and selling the outcomes or the value that you propose to create for your client? Now, if you look at the example that I have here on the slide, like what are these outcomes? At the end of the day, value really is nothing more than a feeling. So if you look at these outcomes, these are just feelings. What's not on this list, what could be on this list, but I purposely didn't want to put it on there, but I do want to talk about it, is rate of return. And I think we all have this tendency to default to the economic form of value that the client is looking for. So we go into the meeting, we go into the sale, thinking clients looking for a certain rate of return. And you all know that the wealthier your clients, the less important that is. The wealthier clients, the more complex their life is. And really, at the end of the day, what our clients really want for us are at the bottom. And if we first see ourselves as selling these outcomes, this value, then we will be able to price to that, and we will be able to feel confident in the conversation that we have with our clients.
I would love to just quickly in the chat, if we had asked you before Blair showed this slide, what is your value, right? What's your value proposition? What is it you think you are selling? It's often around solutions, right? Like output solutions. But we all know that when you talk to a client 12 months after and this is what I want to get to, Blair, 12 months after they've seen you, 12 months after they've worked with you, or 18 months, if you talk to a client, then they will tell you, they won't say things like the portfolio management or they'll say things like, I just feel safe. I'm not worried about things as much anymore. I'm less anxious. Two things. Number one, we're an hour in. What's been most valuable? Number two, if we were to surface 3 or 4 questions in like Michael Baker, I'd love for you to come on and ask one question, but 3 or 4 questions, what's the most important 3 or 4 questions? Okay. Questions. Who has Michael Baker? What's the most important question you want to ask? Can you unmute you? Are you in the place where you could do that?
Yeah. Hey, Blair, what's up? So, one of the things I wanted to ask, I guess, was how do we transition somebody from a lower tier to maybe the more appropriate tier that they should be from a pricing standpoint?
So let's say you're young and just starting out. In the beginning, you might not, like every client's a good client. And the first level of success in any business is you just validation, like and sustainability. You get to the point where, okay, well, I've got a business. Works. I'm getting validation from the market. People are paying me. You get to the first level of success through hard work and saying yes to everything. And then to get to the next level of success, probably most people on this call want to get to the next level. You have these, you feel like you're up against some sort of barrier. You actually have to let go of those two tools that got you there, hard work and saying yes to everything. And it's really about being more, I don't know how this applies in your world. You replace work with risk. And I don't know if that does apply in your world, but the second thing is really relevant here. Instead of saying yes to everything, you start saying no. You become more picky about who you work with. Warren Buffett says the difference between successful people and really successful people is really successful people say no to almost everything. So once you get a certain traction level, you establish a minimum. Maybe you have a minimum right away. Then that minimum keeps going up. And you deliver that minimum in the qualifying conversation. Now, it's really a guide for a sales conversation. So when I hired my financial advisor a few years ago, my current one, I did not meet his asset minimum. So I was, the power dynamics are exactly where they should be from his point of view, which is I am trying to qualify. I'm close, but I'm not there. And so he does the right thing, which is, well, from time to time, I make exceptions. Let's keep talking. So he doesn't say, I'll waive it. He says, maybe I will if you're the right person. So I'm trying to qualify. And that's how we use that minimum level of engagement. And you're right, Michael, it's like that would be, the low end would be, just whatever that price is. That's how you think about it. The bigger question is scope creep. So a client buys a package. Let's say they buy basic and they keep calling you with questions or requests that are in the enhanced package. In any business, this is an issue. But because you laid it out as 3 very clear choices, how you combat scope creep is you refer back to those 3 different packages and say, hey, it sounds like I'd love to be able to help you for that. What you're asking me to do is in our enhanced package. As a reminder, we had this conversation a couple of years ago. The fees are this. Do you want to move up to that level? So that's how you would manage that specific request when the client is trying to get things from another package, and they knew what the trade-offs were when they looked at your options, and they chose to save money and went with the cheap package. So we have to become good at managing scope creep that way.
I'm going to send some rapid fire questions to you. Should we have our fees on a website?
Not your fees, but it would be, you can set some pricing guidance. You can have a minimum asset level on your website. So you would put fees on your website if you are overwhelmed with inquiries, if you get too many leads from too many poorly qualified prospective clients. That's when you start to think about putting fees on your website. If you're spending too much time in qualifying conversations, qualifying people out.
Yeah. Yeah. And know that, like, if you're including fees on your website and it's working for you and it's delivering the results you want, please keep doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, this is just giving you something to think about how you might approach that. And I also want to really make sure that we're not talking about hiding fees or a lack of transparency. Like, transparency is incredibly important. It's just transparency when, right? Like, the question is purely a function of sequencing in terms of helping people understand when they have enough information to understand what the transparency means, right? That's all I'm saying. And you could pull that off on a website, and it might take a first meeting. So it's just something to think about. What other questions? Raise your hand if you have a question, like your emoji hand, if you can unmute yourself. Oh, great, Samuel. Samuel, go ahead.
Blair, as someone who is feeling very convicted and, man, I want to make some changes. Like, how would you not let the fire die? How would you suggest not letting the fire die? Is there like a series of books, a way to like work with you? I mean, just give me like a 3-month, how do I kind of implement some of what we're talking about?
Love that.
Yeah, thanks. Is there a series of books? There's a book called Pricing Creativity, A Guide to Profit Beyond the Billable Hour. It was written for creative professionals as the first target market, but the target's not the market. The target's narrower than the market, and our market seems to have included financial planners as well. We do public workshops. The next one's in June. It's 12 hours over 4 days on Zoom. It covers the whole 4 conversations, including pricing. There's other information on the website. You can email me at blair@winwithoutpitching.com. But between my books, so my other book is here somewhere. I think I've talked to this group or one of Carl's groups before on this book, The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. Again, that's written for designers, but that's how I met Carl, as he read this book and reached out to me 12 years ago or whatever it was, I think. So that's kind of an inspirational book that will get you into the right frame of mind. And then the pricing book is the Here's How To book on pricing. And if you want training, the workshop's $2,800. And then there's ongoing, well, there's a little bit of support afterwards that's ongoing. Carl, can I do this? Just share. So that's the book. You buy it at pricingcreativity.com. It's the only pricing book in the world priced based on the principles in the book. There are 3 options. And if you use this code,
the whole thing's a giant righteous trick, just so you know, but it delivers.
It's an experiment and a fascinating experiment. And if you use that code, you can get the top tier, which is which is the ebook, the manual, and the videos for the price of the middle tier. So it's Society 2024.
It's amazing, Blair. Thank you. And just go see what happens to you when you show up at the website, and just like pay attention to the tricks that are the righteous tricks, right? So good. Tony, jump in real quick, and then Jude.
So, hey, Blair, so quick question on going to the existing clients. Quick backstory would be the majority of my clients are transition clients from my prior firm. And at that prior firm, the only fees they ever paid, they never paid out of pocket. And what I'm concerned about is I know that I need to be charging for my services, but if I'm already giving all of the services anyway, how does that conversation look any different if you go saying, hey, Mr. Client, you've been getting all of this for free. I want to give you the same thing and continue to do it and do it better. But instead of you getting it for free, now you need to pay me X.
Yeah. So instead of now you need to pay me, just think of it this way. A 3-option proposal is never a take it or leave it scenario. So the closing conversation in our model isn't like, well, here it is, look, yes or no. It's, hey, here are 3 different ways we can do this. Let's have a conversation about what's most appropriate for you. So if you go into it with that mindset, and so you might say, okay, I've got 3 different levels of service. We're streamlining or taking the business to the next level or stratifying the clients. I'm not sure what the exact language would be, but you're basically doing what every business owner should do. And you're having a rethink about your business, and you're trying to find a way to deliver the most value to the clients who really want that value and are willing to pay for it. So let's say you put your 3 options in front of them and you say, right now, you're getting the enhanced, you're getting this, and you're paying for the cheap one. Now, and then we've got these 3 in the middle. First and foremost, I just want to reassure you that you are a valued client. It's my intention to always be here for you and your family. But can we talk about these options? Which of these makes the most sense for you moving forward? And let's have a conversation. And so what I'm trying to model here is, let's say you get pushback and the client says, Tony, I don't know how you could do this to me. It's like, I came over, blah, 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 because, you made the commitment, et cetera. I feel like you should just continue to serve me at the rate you've been serving me. You can make the decision on a case-by-case basis to say, you know what, you're right. I gave you that commitment and I'm going to stick to it. That's in so the decision is entirely up to you. You let this client continue at this service level, at this fee. But I think it's a conversation you should have with all of your clients. And you might be surprised at how many of your clients say, yeah, I get this. This makes total sense. Sign me up for the, I want the service to say the same. I'm happy to pay the higher fee.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Blair, I know you got to go. Thanks for being here, my friend. That was amazing. So fun. And to everybody else, we'll see you in May. If you have questions or feedback, send them to me. You're going to get a summary email of this call with a link to a Google document that involves some pricing letters that people have used. So cheers, everybody. Great to see you. Thanks, Blair. Do you know how valuable you are? Right? The work you do has a massive impact on the clients that you serve. I hope you know that. And if you're like so many financial advisors, like I was too, it can be a struggle to communicate it. Right? You know how deeply valuable you are, and at the same time, there's anxiety, fear, and concern about when you're going to have the fee conversation and how you're going to do it. You may even feel tongue-tied, like you're not sure what to say. Well, if that's you, welcome, my friend. So many of us feel that way, which is why the monthly workshop that I just did with Blair Enns was so valuable. Blair walks us through what he says is the second most important skill in all of business, the value conversation. In fact, we role-played it. We go through word for word using exact scripts on how to talk about your fees in a way that will feel honest and full of integrity. You are absolutely going to love it. And in fact, I'm so sure of that. And this isn't a sales tactic. Look, I just don't know how to I don't know how to convince you. So why don't we just let you come and see? Right? When you join, your first month is free. That allows you to get access to the recording of the last call and the next live workshop that we do. And again, I'm not doing that because I'm literally doing it because I don't know how to explain it to you. Just come and see. Here's how you do it. Go to thesocietyofadvice.com to get more information and to sign up there. When you do, your first month is free so you can check it out. It's basically risk-free. And in fact, this is a great time to do it because this workshop is worth its weight in gold with Blair. It was super, super good. So we'd love to have you. Please remember, right? I know how valuable you are. You know it. Your clients know it. We just need to learn how to communicate it better. And that's what we do in this workshop. Cheers, my friends.